In this video we're going to have a look at getting these 6 freshly split strips of bamboo ready to start planing them. What we're going to end up with at the end is 6 plain strips in triangles which will form a rod section which is oversized for what we want, and these will be ready for heat treating. This is actually the tip section of the rod we're going to be making, but for now we're going to concentrate on these strips for the butt section. So these are the strips that we split from the Cormer bamboo the other day. What we're going to look at now is these nodes. When we make the completed rod, we don't want all of these nodes on the individual strips to line up, so we're going to do what's known as staggering the nodes. Now there's a couple of different ways we can do this. What we could do is what we call a spiral pattern, and each strip of bamboo is moved up so that the nodes are not in a line. I find this method quite messy looking on the finished rod, so I don't really like that. Another way we could do it is to have 2 sets of 2, so strip 1 and 4 will be moved up, and strip 2 and 6 are moved up, and now we will have 2 nodes opposite each other on the finished section. Now I do sometimes use this method, but what's by far the most common method to use, and the one which I prefer, is known as a 3x3 method, and this is where every other strip is moved up so that we have 2 sets of 3 nodes. That means that no node will be next to a strip with another node on, and it gives a nice neat appearance at the end. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to use the 3 strips next to each other. Now this rod section wants to be 4 feet in length when I'm finished, so we've got the tape measure here to make sure. We're going to leave ourselves about 2 inches extra, so we're going to cut these 3 strips will be cut here, and then these 3 strips we'll cut down at the thinner end up here. So we'll just quickly cut these off at the desired length. We're just going to use a small hacksaw with a nice fine blade to prevent any tearing out on the bamboo. I'll just line the mark up. So we'll cut those to length, and in a minute I will cut the other strips to length. Now what we also want to do at this point is we're going to flatten off the back of these strips. As you can see from these strips, we've got the big hump where the node is, which if I show you on the corner that we split it from, these are what we call nodal dams. They just give the bamboo some support while it's growing, stops the wind being able to blow it over. But before we can plane this bamboo, we need to flatten both the back, and in the next video we will also work on the front side. You'll also notice there's a layer of almost furry material. We call this the pith, and we want to get rid of just a small amount of this. So for this I'm just going to very quickly and very roughly use this belt sander. Now this is probably the only sort of electrical tool I use in the whole rod making process, and it's just basically to very quickly flatten that off and remove just a very small amount of this. So if we just quickly do this one strip, Okay, so we've hardly removed any material at all, just most of this white piffy material to make the back of the strips flat, and then we've flattened off where the node was. And this is just a very quick process which will just make the next process a little bit easier. Okay, so we've cut all of our 6 strips to length, and we've also flattened the back of each of the strips. Now, one last thing we do before we move on to the straightening the strips to make them nice and straight so we can plane them, is just a small amount of work on what we call the nodes. Now, these nodes in the next video are going to be heated and pressed flat. As you can see, each node sticks out just a little bit from the cane. But what we're going to deal with here is what we call the nodal ridge. Now, this is just a little bit that sticks up above the cane. What I don't want to do is press this little ridge into the surface of the cane. So before I heat it and press it, I'm just going to remove a small amount of the ridge. Now, there's a couple of ways we can do this. Today I'm going to use a foil, but we could also just gently plane it down, and in fact I'll show you both ways of doing it. So if we start with the foil on this one, you'll notice just a little ridge there, and if we just gently foil that away, so there, I've just removed the ridge and not a lot else. It still sticks up, and the heating and pressing will flatten that bit, but we didn't want this small black ridge to get pressed into the face of the bamboo. So again, if I wanted, I could use a plane set really finely. Just a few little passes with the plane, and we've removed just that little ridge, so that when we heat and press it now, we won't end up with that in the face of the cane. So I'll just continue to work through all of the nodes on the other 6 strips, and then in the next video we'll start straightening the bamboo and pressing all of these nodes.